Hello, this is Lady Boulay, and I hope you are having a marvelous day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, and thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. Candace Owens is described by the online encyclopedia Wikipedia as a conservative influencer, author, talk show host, commentator, and activist. But we know her as someone who popped up out of nowhere and gained a reputation for making an attention-grabbing spectacle of herself. She seems to like to say shocking things that nobody expects her to say, things that are insensitive and are designed to hurt other people. And that gives you a glimpse inside of her personality right there. She likes to say things that are going to shock you, but she also wants to hurt you in the process. And that speaks something back to who she is. That to understand Candace Owens is to not take her seriously. This woman is not to be taken seriously. And once you accept that, I think you can dismiss her for the irrelevant person that she really is. Some people call her a conservative, and she has certainly hitched her wagon to the conservative movement and the Republican Party. Black Americans, the people that Candace Owens identifies with most, see this as blasphemy. Black Americans view the Republican Party as a party full of racists. But Candace Owens insists that she has never experienced racism in America, and this inflames black people. Not only because black people know the history of America, but because Candace Owens herself filed a lawsuit against the Stamford, Connecticut Board of Education citing racial discrimination. But in a surprising moment of truth, when Candace Owens was being interviewed on the Laura Ingraham show on Fox News, she told the truth. Maybe she forgot she had filed that lawsuit way back in 2007. But she told the truth. She said she had never experienced racism in the United States. And if that lawsuit back in 2007 is the only instance that anybody can point to that they will call racism, then I agree with Candace Owens. She has not experienced racism in the United States, because I don't believe that lawsuit was based on racism or racial discrimination. And I'm going to share why I think she filed that lawsuit against the Stamford Board of Education. Candace Owens was brought up in a housing development in Stamford, Connecticut, which black people call the projects. Before Connecticut became a sanctuary state, Stamford was the highest per capita city in the United States. A large number of Fortune 500 companies were headquartered in Stamford, and the average household income was higher than any other city in the United States, including Beverly Hills. So this was a very expensive city to live in. I know a little bit about Stamford because people from my hometown moved to Stamford from the South because they wanted people to come and work in their homes, live in, help. The ones who did not live in with white people complained about the cost of housing in Stamford. So you either lived in the projects or you rented a room. And buying a house in Stamford was so expensive that you had to work almost 10 years just to get a down payment for the average black person, because some of them did buy houses. So Candace Owens was brought up poor in a very expensive town. Candace Owens attended public school in Stamford, which is to say that she was a poor girl attending school with a lot of wealthy white kids. Now, she was not the only black student or the only black girl in that school system, but she's the only one that filed a lawsuit. So let's get to the lawsuit. In 2007, while a 17-year-old senior in high school, Candace Owens received 3 racist death threat voicemail messages totaling 2 minutes from a group of white male classmates. Joshua Starr, the city's superintendent of schools, listened to the voicemail messages and said that they were horrendous. So Candace's family sued the Stamford Board of Education in federal court, alleging that the city did not protect her rights, resulting in a $37,000 $500 settlement in January of 2008. So her family sued the school board for not protecting her rights. Now let me tell you why that's bogus. That is bogus because if there was a systemic problem in that school of not protecting black students' rights, that would have been a class action suit. That would have been more than one black student involved if there was a systemic problem. Only Candace Owens was having a problem with having her rights protected. Well, what rights were violated would be my question. White boys making racist prank calls to her home did not constitute the school not protecting her rights. But the point is, why is she being singled out? That would be a question. She's not the only black student in that school. So the complaint is that one night Candace Owens was sitting at her house watching television. She got 3 cell phone voice messages and they were threatening to her. This is what she writes. They started off by telling me that they were going to kill me just because I was black. They warned me that if they found me at home, they were going to unload a bullet into the back of my head. They cited other niggers who had died before me, like Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. They threatened to tar and feather my family. She says that a group of anonymous boys called my cell phone and left me a series of voicemails. Now, as far as I know, in order for somebody to have your cell phone number, you have to give it to them. I believe she gave that cell phone number to one of those boys. Unless they're doing something different in Connecticut than they do everywhere else, and people can just call AT&T and get your cell phone number. She says she only knew one of the students, who was her classmate, the only one that she had ever spoken to. So 3 she didn't even know. So the question would be, why are these people calling and threatening Candace Owens on her cell phone? She said they were going to kill her just because she was black. But there were other black kids at that school, and there's no record that any of them got any threatening voicemails on their cell phone. Just Candace Owens. Now, if any other black person said that happened to them, I would say it was racist. Yes, that was a racist thing that happened to you. But since it was Candace Owens, I'm going to say that it wasn't racist. That was not racism. That was just a high school prank. 3 or 4 high school boys had too much time on their hands, and they decided to have a little fun at Candace Owens' expense. So no, it was not racism. The NAACP should never have gotten involved, swooping in on their white horse as Captain Save a Negro and got that money for her. They should never have gotten involved in that case. That case should have been solved at the school board level where they did conflict resolution between those students, and they should have gotten to the bottom of that and sent Candace Owens back to her class and told her to mind her business and stop giving her telephone number to boys she didn't know. Now, the reason she was able to milk that situation for $37,500 is because the mayor of Stamford at the time was a Democrat planning to run for higher office. He eventually became the governor of Connecticut, Governor Daniel Malloy. So this mayor, who had higher political aspirations, did not want his sons to be caught up in a racial discrimination lawsuit against a young black girl from the projects. So he encouraged the school board to settle with her, because once the NAACP gets involved, they ramp it up, and before you know it, the whole country is involved. And now the Stamford Public Schools is a racist school system, and that is what they didn't want. So she won. She won by playing that victim's hand, that racial discrimination card that she says she has never experienced. And I'm agreeing with her. She experienced a racist prank, but she did not experience racial discrimination from the Stamford Public Schools. And she knows she didn't. And that's how come she told Laura Ingraham that, because she knows she did not experience racial discrimination. And to show her non-gratitude for the NAACP, she turned around and called them the worst organization for black people. Candace Owens is called by many an opportunist, and I believe that she is. She does take advantage of situations. she flipped into the Republican Party because it looked like it was going to be lucrative. But I don't even believe that Republicans like her, and I absolutely don't believe that white Republican women like her, because I think they can read her and they see she is not a sincere person. Anybody who goes out there and throws their own people under the bus for no particular reason cannot be trusted. Candace Owens did not experience racial discrimination in Stamford, Connecticut. She was an opportunist. She saw an opportunity to grab some money and get a rich kid in trouble. I do not believe that we have heard the whole story about those telephone messages. It just seems mighty strange that out of the clear blue sky, she's going to get these 3 hate-filled voice messages from 3 boys that she didn't even know. She only knew one of them. And I believe some of it was swept under the rug, because I don't believe she was all that innocent. Given the way she's operating now, the way she just goes after people, picks on people who are not bothering her, I don't believe she was completely innocent. But I just believe that the mayor didn't want to be a part of a big scandal because he had higher political aspirations. And look how she spit on the NAACP, almost trying to make it seem like the NAACP just barged in on her case, that she didn't invite them in now that she doesn't see the value of the NAACP. I think it was a case of extortion because I don't believe she was innocent. The NAACP came in and showed them how they could shake that school system down for money, and she jumped right on it. She jumped on it to get the money. So I'm going to apply her logic to her situation. She did not experience racial discrimination, just like she said. She was a young black girl who got in some kind of a situation with some white people or some white boys, and she decided to cry racism. And those boys did something that was inappropriate, something that should not have risen to the level of the school system being sued. It should have been handled in-house. They should have been counseled. They should have been required to apologize to her, and they should have been suspended for the appropriate amount of time. But she should have been investigated too, because she was involved in that in some way. Because how did they get her telephone number? That has to come into play. But no, she cried racism. That's what she did. And then the NAACP came in and showed her how she could get money out of it. And so she's right. It's not a case of racial discrimination. It's a case of extortion. She extorted that school system out of $37,500. They were trying to get more than that. But because the school system and the mayor knew that this was a case of extortion, that's all they would agree to pay. So she just cried racism. She benefited from it, and then she threw the NAACP under the bus. Like I said before, she is not to be trusted. So since she says that she has not experienced racial discrimination in the United States, I'm going to go along with that. It wasn't racial discrimination. That was the successful shakedown of a school system that was trying to save its reputation and a politician that didn't want to be part of a scandal. Okay, let me know what you think about the video. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, share the video, and as always, have a great day.